Hi friends, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are discussing the new Texas food cottage law that has been updated. I have some vocabulary for you just so we can be in line with what we're talking about in the video. Here I have CFPO is cottage food production operations and TCS temperature controlled for safety. So one of the things that is new, or if you're wondering what's new, here are a few of the points that I read over from the website. All of this information is public over on their website. I will have that linked up below. But basically, instead of providing a physical home address on your label, you can now register via their website and obtain a registration number to put on the label. So for example, let's say you register and your number is 5. You would have the name of your company or your logo with the number 5 instead of your whole entire address on the label. You can now legally sell at stores and cafes or restaurants via wholesale. So, like, let's say somebody that is a restaurant owner or a cafe owner, they are able to purchase from you and you can have your products at their locations without having to get extra permits or anything of that kind. The annual threshold for income has also been upped, and the types of food you can sell have also changed. Okay, so one of the many points that has changed, and I feel like somewhat is probably one of the most exciting ones, is that you no longer have to include your home address on your labels. DSHS has a PDF file on their website that walks you step by step on exactly how to register your business to obtain a registration number to include on your labels instead of having your whole home address. So when I went ahead and logged in on the website, it actually gives you the link. So you basically just go on the website, click the link, and it takes you to register. But before you do that, right below that there is a PDF file, and it walks you, like when you open it, it walks you step by step with screenshots like this on how to exactly register your business to receive that registration number. So you would basically include your logo, the ingredients, whatever else you want to include on there, and place your registration number. Let's say, for example, it's 5 on the label instead of your home address. Another exciting thing that has changed is that you can now sell non refrigerated homemade food through third party vendors. I mentioned this in the beginning. So basically, let's say, for example, your local grocery stores, like the small grocery stores, cafes, small food stores, or co ops, you can now sell your jams, cookies, spice mixes through them without having to jump through loops and hoops to get extra licensing or extra permits, or just like pitching to somebody to basically do that. You obviously need the connection. You need to know someone at these local grocery stores and co ops, but you just don't have to jump through the hoops with the actual regulatory authorities anymore. This is also a big one that has changed, and this is basically what can you actually sell with this new and updated food cottage law bill. Basically, the allowable foods now include any food, whereas before we couldn't sell cakes with cream cheese, for example, or cheesecakes. You can sell any food except for the following, which would be meat, meat products, poultry products, seafood, including seafood products, fish, fish products, shellfish, and shellfish products. You also cannot sell ice or ice products, like, for example, ice creams or frozen treats. I'll have the link to the full list below, but basically, one of the most exciting things that I think for bakers is that you can now sell things that have cream cheese in it. When I started my business in 2015 in Midland, Texas, that was one of my biggest things, is that I couldn't sell anything that had cream cheese frosting because I was a cottage law baker back in the day. That has changed. So yeah, now you can sell cheesecakes, flan. You can sell cakes that have cream cheese frosting in them. All of this, as long as you keep everything according to temperature, you can sell it. The next very important thing is basically local public health entities and how the DSHS impacts this. So basically, your annual gross income has tripled from whereas you could only make $50,000 as a home cottage baker, you can now make up to $150,000. And there's a little bit more of explanation on that on the website, but basically it also depends on inflation. So if for some reason that amount needs to be upped, it can be. Another very cool, important thing is that you can now pass out samples as long as you do so in a way that is sanitary. You keep these samples to temperature. Like, for example, for people that do farmers markets, you can now provide samples of your products without jumping the extra loops and hoops to do that. Another very important thing that I didn't put as a bullet here, but if you do have a cottage law, a cottage food business or cottage baking business, it is mandatory that you do pass like a food handling safety test. They do have a link on their website as to which ones are acceptable. And just in general, I feel like if you're dealing with food, that's very important for you to do because you might have started this as a hobby and then it grew into a business, but I do feel like it's very important for anyone that is handling food to do it in a way that is safe, especially if you're selling it for profit to the public. I am going to have all of those links down below, but I also want to talk to you about my experience as a cottage bakery I did it in Texas and I also did it in Pennsylvania. So let me kind of gather my thoughts and be back. Okay, so when I started doing this in Midland, Texas, the rules were completely different. I was living in Midland, Texas in 2015, and that's when I decided to start. And I did mention earlier that there were a lot of restrictions as to the types of foods that you could sell pertaining to baked goods. And one of those things was cream cheese. I remember people ordering red velvet cake and wanting cream cheese frosting, but I couldn't do it because it was not allowed. So I feel like that's one of the biggest changes as far as the updated bill goes, is that now you are able to sell a lot more things that we were not allowed to maybe 5, 6 years ago, or even last year. This did take effect September 1st of 2025, so it is rather recent. I heard about it approximately 3 months ago when it was first brought up, and I was really excited. So I also mentioned that I had a cottage bakery up in Pennsylvania when we lived in Pittsburgh at the time. So I do want to reiterate that the laws of cottage bakery will be different depending on the state that you are in. This is exclusively for Texas, but when I lived in Pennsylvania, I remember moving. So we did it was an apartment, a house apartment situation. So we rented the entire first floor. And I remember when I first started to pick back up my baking business, I started to do some research and I thought it was kind of like in Texas, right? So you just up and open your bakery, you're good for business as long as you follow the food guidelines of what you could sell and couldn't sell. But in Texas at the time, you did not need a permit, you did not need a special license. So when I started looking into doing the same thing in Pennsylvania, I thought, oh, maybe it's the same, right? The process is the same. You don't have to register anywhere. So I started doing the research, and lo and behold, in Pennsylvania at the time, please keep that in mind. At the time, it might be different now, but at the time, you had to actually go on to their website for food handling, basically like their health department website, and you had to actually create an account, register your business, register the address of your business, and then before it actually confirmed you, you had to schedule for the inspector to come and inspect your home or the kitchen that you would be using for the commercial purpose of selling your cakes, cookies, cupcakes, cake pops, whatever it was that you're selling. So I remember scheduling that visit, and I was so nervous. And I would ask people if they had any experience with it. Nobody that I asked did. The day that he arrived, so he basically walked right into the kitchen and immediately started checking faucets, temperature under cabinets. They even checked the internal temperature of your refrigerator to make sure that the lights in the refrigerator were working. The temperature of your oven, was it calibrated? Was it not calibrated? I remember getting dinged for the temperature. No, not the temperature. One of the lights in the kitchen actually didn't have a cover. So I got dinged for that. And I got dinged for, I believe, something in my refrigerator. I think it was also one of the lights. You know, when you open the door, one of the lights turns on. I think that's one of the things I got dinged on. And then after I fixed those items, you send in proof that you fixed it. And after that, you get approved to apply for your license. I forgot how much the fee was to apply for your license, but you need an actual cottage food license in Pennsylvania at the time to operate. So after I went ahead and did all that, it took approximately 1.5 months to complete the entire process. Then I started being able to sell my baked goods. But like I said, your experience is going to be different anywhere depending on where you live. So be sure to always, before starting your cottage law bakery business from your home, make sure to do some research according to the state that you live in. Make sure that you take a course so that you can handle food correctly. And again, I hope this video was very helpful. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Don't forget to leave me all your questions down in the comments below. Subscribe before you go, hit the like button, and share this video with a friend. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.